welcome to episode 28 of the Silver Savage podcast. It has been a few weeks since our last drop. We apologize for the absence, but we hope the actions we took will make your experience and interaction with us even better. First of all, we opened a new school for our sister company, Masada Tactical, in Severna Park, Maryland. As always, if you're looking for the absolute best in self-defense, self-protection, emergency medicine, preparedness, or tactical training, you should check our school out. Visit training.masadatactical.com for more information on the various classes, seminars, and how to sign up. We also lined up a new list of guests we hope you will find intriguing and entertaining. Lastly, following feedback we received from you, Steve and I will devote more time to record episodes where we discuss current events and stuff we are up to. If you had a chance to listen to our last episode with Serena Wooster, you heard her mention her father, a Vietnam veteran who flew airplanes during the war. Of course, the bait was just too irresistible for Steve and I, and we had to have this hero on our show. In this episode, we are proud and honored to have Captain Bob Wooster with us, a pilot, adventurer, entrepreneur, and a role model many of the newer generations can aspire to learn something from. Here's our chat with Bob Wooster. Steven's sewing a shirt there, and that's about it.
Hey, as I told him, since we're all veterans here, I'm old school Marine Corps. The first thing they taught me to do was make my bed, iron my clothes, and how to sew before they taught me how to take over a country with a bobby pin and duct tape. So I've never forgotten that skill.
That's what you get for being a Marine. You know?
At least you're out of bed. I mean, we got a sleeping bag. That's about it. Making a bed in the morning was rolling it up. That's about it.
That was just boot camp. After that, it was a dirt hole filled with water.
There you go.
Well, Mr. Wooster, it's a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you
Yes,
so much
it
for
is.
agreeing.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I really am. Yeah, it's nice to finally see you guys and put a face to all the conversations we've had.
I will tell you that since we had Serena on the podcast, between Stephen and my wife, I can't stop hearing about Serena because they both are, I guess, seeing her now or using her services, and I hear it from all ends right now. So
there you go. Good. That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
No, our conversation with her was awesome, and we look forward to having you for the next hour or so. So, if you don't mind, we'll get started. Is that good by you?
That's fine.
Awesome. So, how would you like us to address you? Bob, Robert, Mr. Wooster?
Bob is fine.
General.
Yeah, General.
Listen, after reading his bio, I'm ready to address him as Your Highness.
Yeah,
right.
Actually, some of the younger boys' relatives that I have, they call me Captain Bob.
I like it. Captain Bob works.
Or Coach Bob. But Bob is fine. Bob is fine.
So we did see the bio, and I guess the coaching soccer, and I guess you're a runner, and obviously the military background. How about you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, where you come from, where you grew up, how'd you got in the military, and so forth?
Yeah, well, I was born in Springfield, Massachusetts, and we raised there pretty much my whole life. And I'm a true New Englander at heart, although I lived the last 15, 16 years in Florida and now in North Carolina. I still feel like I'm a New Englander at heart. But I grew up in Springfield and ended up going to Dartmouth College for my college years, and it was at that time that I participated in Air Force ROTC, not really knowing what I was getting involved in, and probably the main reason I was doing it was because they actually paid us a little to participate, and
I guess we can talk in a little bit and segue to all these student loan forgiveness program now. And now some people have to go to the military to get free tuition.
Yeah.
So we can discuss that in a little bit. Where is Dartmouth?
That's in New Hampshire.
Okay, so you stayed in the region.
Yeah, it's right on the Connecticut River, and it's about halfway up the state.
Okay.
beautiful country. I
I'm
really
sure.
like it. Yeah.
And why Air Force ROTC? Was that the only thing available? Why not one of the
No, it
other?
wasn't. Actually, it could have been Navy or Army. We had all three at that time. Soon afterwards, with the whole Vietnam situation, they pretty much did away with them all under pressure. But when I was there, they were going full swing. And I was fortunate enough to be part of a program. It was kind of an initial program that they were sponsoring. And that was my senior year. They put me through local pilot training. So I actually, when I graduated, not only did I become an officer, but I also had my private pilot's license. So, and quite honestly, I'm glad I did, because I got sent right in afterwards, and 2/3 of my class at pilot training was from the Air Force Academy. And I was like a duck out of water. And I really struggled, but fortunately that training that I had in that small propeller plane really did help me adjust and get into the flow of things. And not only overall, it was another new program that pilot training had just started, and it was starting you out for the first few weeks in a little Cessna. So this was a pilot program for that. Once again, having gone through that kind of a situation, it really helped me get through that. So that was a good benefit for me.
Perfect. So before we go into the post-Vietnam era, let's talk about that. What airplanes did you fly again? I think Serena mentioned in the past, but was it the F4?
Well, when I graduated from pilot training, that was in 1965, the F4 was just coming on board full blast. And they took just about 2/3 of each class that I graduated with and put them right into the F4. The problem was the Navy had, when they started with the F4, the F4B and F4C, they put a pilot in the front, and then they put a weapons operator, navigator type radar operator in the back. So the guy in the back was not a pilot. The Air Force, in their wisdom, they put a pilot in the front and they put a pilot in the back, and that was me in the back. So even though we could fly the plane, we had all the controls, it really did not help my proficiency, especially coming right out of pilot training, to be in the back seat. I think that was a big mistake on their part, but it was what it was.
I didn't think the Air Force made mistakes. I thought that's the Marines.
Yeah.
So I just watched Top Gun 2, and I have some questions.
Yes.
There are some crazy maneuvers there. Are those doable? Have you watched the movie?
Yes.
Of course he did.
Well, I don't know.
Top Gun 1, the first one, is my favorite movie.
Yes.
We're all on the same page.
My favorite movie.
Yes.
When Top Gun 2 came out, I was just thrilled. And Serena and my wife all went to it. The kids go? Yeah, everybody went to it and just were thrilled with the thing, as I was too. But yeah, those were real pilots doing those maneuvers.
That's what I heard. And didn't the old Top Gun concept, though, and I bring it up on purpose, didn't that all come up as lessons learned in Vietnam, though, right?
I'm sorry, say again?
I'm sorry. The whole idea of creating a school to get pilots to be better at dogfighting, that concept stemmed from Vietnam, right? Or post-Vietnam. Because in Vietnam, you guys had to actually do that, right? And then it was a lost skill.
They had MiGs and whatnot, so...
Yeah, and I think that the concept of the air-to-air combat had changed between Korea and Vietnam. in Korea in World War II, the main weapon was the machine gun on the plane. And dogfights was strictly a case of shooting them down with machine guns. In Vietnam, totally different story. The F-4D, that was the bulk of the planes in Vietnam, didn't even have a machine gun on it. Everything was rockets and missiles.
So, but even with rockets, I mean, it's sort of like a machine gun because rockets are, as I put them, I was an aviation ordnance technician in the Marine Corps, so I made you pilots smile. I gave you all your tools to go forth and play.
Yep.
But I mean, even with rockets, you have to have some serious skills because they're a dumb weapon, as I call them. They weren't, like harm missiles or proximity missiles. You had to like really be on your game, point that aircraft towards your quote unquote bogey and engage,
Exactly right. Exactly right. And this, the guy in the back seat, myself, this is what we were responsible a lot because some of the radar control ones, and you had to virtually lock on to these targets to get them to fire off. And I think that's what happened with the Top Gun concept was they took this new technology and realized they had to update the whole system, so to speak, with these fighter jocks, so they would be really prepared to deal with this kind of air combat.
So what are some lessons that you think aviators had back in your time that are lost on modern military personnel? So it was a different military, it was a different war, right, with different times. And I'll tell you from my example, for example, I went in the military in the early 90s in Israel, so certainly a different culture. Mm-hmm. But I talked to people that were in the military more recently, and they actually get to sleep, they watch what they eat, they're allowed to have cell phones, they are sensitive to their feelings. I feel like we're getting softer as a military. Do you feel that transition happened in the military also in the U.S.?
One thing you've got to realize is I was in the military 1965 to 1970. That's a long time ago. I was not a career guy, so all this time has passed, and it's really gone beyond me, really. So I don't really know how to answer that because I don't really know. I'm not familiar enough with the way the military is, but I don't know. I still think that push come to shove, that the American military training is good. Myself,
Amen.
I don't think I really don't think it's soft. I think it's just changing with the times and probably because they've had to draw people in, draw personnel in and I think you got a different breed in there now that wants to be in there, and I think that they do fine.
Okay. Well, I do. Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
No. So I'm curious. I'm curious, Mr. Captain Awesome. I'm gonna call you Captain Awesome. So the concept of dogfighting and significant aerial combat, was really exemplified during the Vietnam War because during Korea, and I'm a military history major. My brother BK hates me because I'm always interjecting military history wherever we are. But we had a lot of prop planes. The jet engine was still coming out. Now, pilot survival training, let's say post aerial combat, you have to eject, you got to get out there. I would say those of you who sacrificed, and served during the Vietnam War laid the foundation for what we call SEER. I don't know what they called it when you went through training. So I cross-trained as we call them aerial observers, but a crew chief on helos. So I had to do survival, escape, resistance, evasion training. I don't know what they called it when you went through, but I would assume you had to go through something similar. But obviously it was going to be specific to Vietnam, punji pits, and jungles and all that stuff. Can you elaborate on that? Because I'm curious. Because I know from what I learned, and I know I can't talk too much about it, but from what I learned going through it, a lot of that foundation was laid by pilots like you and those who had to go through that similar training.
Yeah, I actually went through a couple survival schools on my way to Vietnam before I went there. One was just a normal one, and that was up in the state of Washington, where it was out in the woods, and it was I would say it was geared towards what we had learned in Korea about being a prisoner of war and how they had treated prisoners, and kind of what we could expect similarly if we had a problem that way. And then actually on my way over to Vietnam, we stopped in the Philippines, and I went to a jungle survival school. And that was real specific about what was happening in Vietnam,
Yeah.
and what things were like there, and what you could very possibly be dealing with if you were shot down, and what, just how to survive at that point. And it was very informative. It really was. And fortunately, I never had to take advantage of it, but I felt a lot more confident in my ability to take care of myself if I did get shot down over there.
Amen to that.
I do know that a lot of the special operations guys that we work with go for Searsco, and I always find it interesting that the origin of Searsco comes from aviator, from pilots, right? Because they were the ones that initially had to deal with it, and they were the ones that the schools were developed for. So I do find that interesting. What was training like for you to fly the F-4? Did you guys still call it the Phantom? I know in Israel the F-4 is the Phantom.
Yes, it is the Phantom.
Yeah, F-4 Phantoms.
Yep. What was training like?
For me, it was lousy, because once again, I was in the back seat of that thing, and as much as I enjoyed being in the plane and actually flying in it and all, I mean, it was an awesome aircraft. I really liked it, but as far as being a pilot and training, I didn't like it at all, because I was not in command of the thing, and I was just like a rider, really, as far as the plane. The systems I was operating, but the plane itself, I was not most of the time. The fact is, I got so discouraged with it that I opted out to go to forward air controller training and go back and start flying little 01 bird dogs.
I was just about to say little prop planes.
That's right. And
by the way, Mr. Wooster, that's one of my favorite movies, Bat 21. So good on you for the forward observer prop planes.
Okay. And the training for that was excellent. It really was. And as I'm sure you know, our only armament, so to speak, were smoke rockets that we would use to spot locations. And that's what I went to Vietnam in. I didn't go.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. For anyone who's listening, real quick, watch the movie Bat 21 with Danny Glover. He's described. It's basically a movie what Captain Awesome is talking about, and he's a forward air observer, Air Force forward air observer in Vietnam in a prop plane, and he's helping a pilot escape capture. But those dudes were beyond it's crazy what they did.
Yeah.
Can you explain what a forward observer does for those that don't know?
Yes. They actually fly and work with ground forces, and what they look to do is to bring in air support to support those ground troops. And the way that works out is that you're in communication with the people, the soldiers on the ground, and if they feel as though they need air support, they tell me, and they tell me what they think they need as far as ordnance and whatnot. And then I just radio back to my base and, get a flight out there. And then once they're there, then the guys on the ground will mark their position with smoke that I can see, because I'm low and slow, and I can see that fine. And then they tell me from there, where do they want the ordnance? In other words, so far to the north, northwest, or whatever. And then what I do is then I take that location and I drop a smoke rocket down into that position as close as I can. And then the fighters can see that, and then they'll go in and drop their ordnance.
So you're saying you were low and slow, which means that in theory, in my mind, would put you in a greater danger in a sense, right? So you are a target.
I mean, you could see guys with pistols shooting up at you. And we used to, we had flak jackets by issue. We used to sit on them because that was, if we were going to get hit, it was going to come right up through, and hopefully that would protect us.
That is crazy. So you said 5 years in the service. Were all those 5 years in Vietnam?
No, just 1 year. 1 year in Vietnam. Yeah.
Was that considered a one tour? I don't know the terminology.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was a year tour.
Okay.
Now the F-4 squadrons that were flying out of Thailand, and the F-105 squadrons flying out of Thailand, doing most of the bombing up north, and all, of which I had several friends that were in those squadrons, so I knew a little bit about it. And they didn't have as much a year tour. They had 100 mission tour. They had to fly 100 missions. And not too long ago, I read a book by Robin Olds. You may have heard him. He's a famous Air Force pilot, fighter pilot, and that's the name of his. It's an autobiography about him, fighter pilot, and he was one of the squadron commanders for 100 missions over in Yukon, and he wrote this book and told about the very interesting and educational about the tactics that were going on, and how he didn't believe in the way that the whole war was handled and all. But it was great reading, and it really taught me a lot about really that whole mission of bombing the North and all. And it was a tough mission, it really was, and it increasingly got harder as the North Vietnamese got more and more surface-to-air missiles, more and more flak machine guns, that kind of thing, to where it really got tough for those guys to complete a mission, especially when it was against targets that these pilots considered inconsequential. The political factors would not let them bomb the real targets, that the important targets that they thought they should be risking their lives for. So I could appreciate that, and it was tough to see my losing probably 4 or 5 friends who got shot down during that time period, and all who happened to be flying that mission, because to me it was a lot of waste of good manpower, to say nothing of the aircraft and all. I mean, we lost so many fighter planes flying that mission over the north. It was terrible. It really was.
I suppose some things don't change until to this day. That waste by political, judgment calls, I guess, that are not necessarily in line with the military objectives, and that discrepancy costs life, right? And only the people on the ground actually recognize it and see it for what it is.
That's right. That's right. And a little side note here was when I realized that I was going to have to go to Vietnam, I realized that I didn't even know where it was, let alone what was really going on over there. So I started doing reading about Vietnam, of which there weren't very many books available at that time. But I wanted to know, if I was going to go over there and die, I wanted to know why. And the sad part was, the more I read, the more I really didn't want to go, because I felt as though that it was not, once talking about the political part of it, it was a political war that felt like that we were, as soldiers and airmen, were like puppets, so to speak, and misled on what was going on and why it was happening, and creating a lot of turmoil within the services about everything that was happening in the war. And I know that's what contributes to so much, to so many guys from Vietnam, ex-vets from Vietnam, have these mental problems, that there was just such a dichotomy of, like, especially the soldiers on the ground, of being in combat with somebody that they didn't really know why they were doing it, just because they were told to do it, and they know they had to, because otherwise they'd get killed themselves. And I know that whole idea led to a lot of problems with a lot of those guys after they came back.
I know a good therapist they can talk to.
Pardon me?
I said I know a good therapist they can talk to.
Right. That's right.
Well, Captain, you say that, and having been, BK is a vet in Israel. I'm a vet myself here in the United States, and despite the wars and the generational difference, it doesn't really change. And at the end of the day, as airmen, as sailors, as Marines and soldiers, our duty is to serve. As Alfred Lord Tennyson's poem, the Charge of the Light Brigade, ours is but to do or die. Ours is not the reason why, ours is but to do or die. And at the end of the day, despite the politics, we always serve for our brother or sister that's to our left or to our right, and not take away from, what we've done. So, and I have to look back to that, because if not, it's going to eat away at us. So, we serve. I always like to say we serve to keep our brothers and sisters to our left and to our right alive, not for the political BS that's always going to be ingrained into any conflict, so
that is
whether it's Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, Yugoslavia, where I first served, it's all going to be the same. It's political, but at the end of the day, as airmen, as soldiers, as Marines, as sailors, it's for our brothers and sisters to the left and to the right.
Bob, let me ask you this. I had a question in mind, and it's now just because there's so many things running around in my head right now when we're talking. Overall, your service, you said it was a year there. Did you, and you did all this research, and the more you read, the less you wanted to go there. Did you have to go there? Because I know historically there were different routes. Obviously, some people were obligated in a sense to go. It was mandatory, enlistment and so forth. But what was your status? Could you have opted out of it?
Here's how I felt about it. I did have to go. I didn't have any choice on it, but I felt inside that I didn't have to take Air Force ROTC. I didn't have to join up. I didn't have to go to pilot training or anything. So I felt that it was my duty to go, even though I didn't believe in it. I felt like the honorable thing to do was to go and just try to serve my time as best I could and hopefully come back unscathed. And that's what I did, and that's what I'm glad I did it that way.
Yeah, and we all thank you for it.
Yeah.
So moving forward a little bit.
Yeah.
So you said you served in Vietnam or you served till 1970. What'd you do after you got out?
I first thing I did was I met up with a friend of mine who was also a pilot, who was one of my roommates in pilot training, and he got out the same day that I did in 1970, and we got together and just kind of looking to decompress a little bit, and we did a lot of hiking up in the Sierras up in California. And then we cruised on down the coast of California to Pasadena, where this fellow's sister lived. And we were going there for a visit, and we didn't really know quite what we wanted to do at that point. But while we were there, we decided, well, how about this? Why don't we buy 10-speed bicycles? And why don't we ride across the country home? Because he was from Pennsylvania and I was from Massachusetts, as I mentioned. I said, we'll send all our stuff home and we'll ride these bikes home. And so we bought these Japanese 10-speed bicycles on a Saturday. Neither one of us ever been on one. And Sunday morning, we took off Pasadena, headed down into the desert, and rode our bikes across the country. 2,200 miles.
Really?
2,200 miles, 31 days. We averaged 100 miles a day.
That's unbelievable. How did your bum feel at the end of the day?
Starting out, it was unbelievably sore, but you just about get calloused up to where you don't feel anything.
So when I got out of the military, so Israelis do something very similar. We got out of the military, and pretty much every Israeli that serves in the military will see combat. That's just the nature of the geopolitical environment we're in. Yeah. So a lot of them like to decompress, and most go to the Far East or to the jungles in the Amazons, and they just disappear for a year or two, really, like you said, decompress, and then come back and start life. I came to America. I took the easy route. I went to California. I bought a van, and I drove all the way to New York rather than riding on a bike. But the people I met along the way and the experiences were unforgettable. I'm sure for you, it was 10 times better. What were some meaningful experiences you had along the way? I mean, that's a long bike ride.
Well, and back then, of course, we didn't have computers, and back then there probably weren't but a handful of people that had ever done that before. So we couldn't look up and say, well, here's the best route, or here's the way you handle this or that, or whatever. I mean, we were just blind to it. We just went. The nemesis of the whole thing is the wind. The wind in your face. It's the absolute worst. But we hit, of course, we hit a lot of rainstorms. In the panhandle of Texas, we hit a blinding snowstorm squall, if you can believe that, where it was so flat and the snow was blowing strictly horizontal as you look out. And we're riding along in this wind. And of course, we're leaning like this so that doesn't blow us over. And then when we stop, we look at each other, and our whole left side is all white, and the other side is nothing. So that's the kind of adventure that was. The rain was another problem, but it was such a challenge, and I think that's what we both needed at that point. That was mentally and physically engorging and engrossing, that it just we just both got into it so much, and we decided we hit that 100-mile mark a couple of days early on. We said, that's what we're going to do each day. We're going to hit 100 miles. And that took some doing. But once again, the challenge was there. And we just felt so great doing it. So alive, really.
So what do we do after a 2,200-mile bike ride? I mean, that would be the pinnacle of most people's life, but not for you, as I read your bio.
Yeah, and I still was not decompressed at that point. So I after I got home, I moved up to New Hampshire, and I way up in what's a town called Franconia, which is way up in the White Mountains. And I bought myself a ski pass, season ski pass there, and skied my life away that winter at Cannon Mountain, which is a great ski resort right there in Franconia. And then in the spring, I started. I built myself a fiberglass kayak. And
what do you mean built yourself?
Well, back then you could buy a kit of pieces that you would put together with the, like the fiberglass tape and that kind of thing, and you would make this yourself. And it was far cheaper than buying one right off the rack that was already made. And that summer, myself and several other friends who had done the same thing, we did whitewater kayaking all over New England, even got into some racing and all. Once again, it was a great experience, loved every bit of it. And eventually I said, well, I got to figure something out here. So I ended up leaving Franconia, and I moved back down to Massachusetts. And I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had no real fire burning inside of me at all. So I actually ended up getting my real estate broker's license, and did that for about 3/4 of a year, and just hated that. But in doing so, I met a guy who was a big home builder developer, and we hit it off real fine. And I ended up going to work for him, and spent a few years working for him, and really developed knowledge of home building and all, and design work. And it was during that time that I actually met my wife and ended up getting married. And so, as you could see, all these adventures were now coming into a more realistic stage, where I had to think about family life, and think about business, think about money, taking care of people, and which I was looking forward to. That was no problem. So what happened was I ended up leaving this fellow that I was working for, and I started my own business building houses. And I had been an art history major in college, and I always liked art, and I was fairly decent artist. And so I ended up designing my own houses too. And I kind of trained myself. And for the next, 30 years or so, this is my business, and this is what I did. And
Do you still build houses?
I did up to, probably, when I moved to Florida about 15 years ago, and I stopped doing it at that point.
Perfect. So obviously this podcast is for, we call it Silver Savage. It's for people in Steve's and my generation. And, we still have war in them, and we always define war battles. I mean, battles change throughout life. Your battle could be dogfighting in Vietnam, or could be battling for the next paycheck, or building a business, whatever it is.
That's right.
So I have two questions to that. And first of all, on the physical side, I know you biked, you kayaked. I know that you ran marathons as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you still run?
Yes. Yeah, I do.
Do you still race?
I'm going to.
Are you really?
Yeah, I'm going to. In fact, as I'm talking to Serena about, we're going to do a 5K called a turkey trot here in Charlotte.
Nice.
Over Thanksgiving. So that's what I'm going to be training for.
My son, who's 9-year-old, came to me recently and said when he turns 13, he doesn't want to party. So for the Jewish people, bar mitzvah, it's a big thing, right? Because he doesn't want to party or anything. He wants to run a marathon. So him and I are going to start training for one together and find a destination one, and that's going to be his 13th birthday. We're going to go and find a race. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
That is cool. That's energetic too. That he wants to do that. I
don't see the point in running that far, honestly.
I don't anymore either. Yeah.
What was your favorite marathon? How many did you do?
Oh, I probably did a half dozen, and I was always trying to qualify for the Boston Marathon. When I was really running heavy, it was a 3-hour qualifying time, and I never made it. I got my best one was just over like 3 hours, and I think it was like 4 minutes or so, and that kind of discouraged me so much that I stopped doing marathons at that point and just concentrated on more of the shorter distances. I've run all the way through my life and raced all through my life, and I mean, it's an integral part of me, and I don't feel right when I'm not running. And I've got to say, I'm almost 80 years old now, and I'm a physical shell of what I used to be, but I'm just happy that I'm still able to run, no matter how slow it is or how hard it is. That my knees and all are still strong enough that I can still do it. So I do it as slow as I am.
You're already better than Steve. He can't even run. His knees are all shot, and he's half your age. So you should feel good about yourself. If you're ever in the DC area or Maryland in October, let us know. We have to do the Army 10 miler. It's a fun race.
Army 10 miler? No, the Marine Corps Marathon. Come on,
but
man.
That's a marathon. I don't want to run a marathon. You don't want to run a marathon.
No, they have 5Ks and whatnot. So,
all right. Well, the Army 10 miler, I used to do that religiously every year up to a few years ago, and it's a flat race through the monument in DC. It's a very nice route, and October is a good time of the year, so it's a really nice race. I really enjoyed that one. So we'll have to go and run it. So that is on the physical side. Do you do anything else other than running, by the way?
Well, I try to go to the gym when I can. Where we lived in Florida, we had a real nice gym facility that I tried to work out a couple times a week, and and I missed that. And so I've actually been talking to Serena about joining the local one here because I feel a need to get back and work on the core and the upper body and all, because it's, as you probably know, it goes fast if you don't stay with it.
Yeah, I find things start hurting or breaking down when I stop working out, when I stop using them. So just gotta keep using them.
Exactly.
There's something to the term of a body in motion stays in motion.
That's
once you stop, it starts breaking down.
That's right. That's my philosophy right there.
So
keep
moving. I will tell you, Bob, that's amazing that you can do all of that. So that is on the physical side. Now on the mental or the other battles that we face, what are some, I guess, lessons that you would impart on people like Steve and myself? We're in business right now for ourselves. Steve is actually next week retiring from, after I don't know how many, 20 years of law enforcement. He's retiring.
Total 23 plus years law enforcement, 8 total military.
Yeah, and if you don't mind bringing politics up a little bit, we have a whole generation of people who have a severe sense of entitlement, right? So what are some lessons from your generation, people like you that worked hard their whole lives, like the challenge, keep driving all the time? What are some things that you would tell the younger generation that they should take away?
Well, my philosophy on all of that is that it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how talented you are at something. It doesn't matter how rich you are. The thing that gets you through life, that's gotten through my life, is persistence. To me, persistence is the key. In other words, you can't give up. Once you lock in on something, you've got to go with it. And that's carried me through one thing after another with life. And I know if I didn't have that persistence, that I wouldn't have accomplished half of the things that I've even talked to you about today. So that's my advice to anybody, really. It doesn't matter those other factors. It's just that you've got to push ahead, be persistent.
I agree. It's so easy for people to quit nowadays on anything, really, on relationships, on work, on school. There's always a backup plan and an easy way out, and I agree with you.
Yeah, that's right.
One thing, and Steve knows it, when we opened and started, or when I started my company, I was also contracting with the state at the Police Training Commission, and I had to make a choice, and I actually quit my job, which was a steady salary with benefits, because I did not want that safety net. Mm-hmm. So I knew that, okay, I'm starting my business and I got to give 100% because 100%. Otherwise I'm not putting food on the table.
Yeah.
I think that's lost on a lot of people. So I appreciate that insight and feedback. First of all, I want to say thank you for joining us today. I know we've been trying to connect for a while. Before I let you go, because we're almost at the 1 hour mark, Serena knows this. And if you listen to any of our podcasts, you know this, but we finish by putting our guest in the hot seat. So Steve has some trivia questions for you.
I know Serena's standing there on the side too. She's probably sitting there waiting to interject.
She's there with Google with the phone ready to kind of check the questions. So she can.
And I have no doubt Serena will put me in check if need be. She has before. And for any of our listeners, I know we had Serena on the podcast before, but she is amazing at what she does. I told her when she took me on as a client that I was going to put all her certifications to the test, and she has produced like any veteran would for her fellow brethren that are veterans. So, but that being said there, Captain Awesome, I'm going to put you in the hot seat. All right, 4 questions. Serena, you better not be Googling these questions either.
How come we
All right.
went up to 4 questions? It used to be 3 questions.
Well, I mean, because he's Captain Awesome.
No,
Right,
yeah,
so-
right.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
And they're all based on fighter pilot lingo. All right. So it's narrowing it down very easily. That's why I did 4. All right. So first question. If I was a fellow fighter pilot, which God knows would never happen because I definitely would crash and burn very quickly. And I'm going over the radio and I said on the radio, I'm Angel 25. What am I referencing? Angel 25.
That's your altitude.
Your altitude, correct. Angel 25 is altitude. So what people don't know, Angel is referencing every 1,000 feet. So Angel 25 would be 25,000 feet.
Yep.
So, all right, first one, ding, ding, ding. You see, you're on it. So you got this, Cap. All right, next one.
Don't forget, this was 50 years ago. Here,
you got this. It's never gonna leave you. All right, next question. All right, I'm in the air. I got bogeys in sight, or whatever. You know, I'm engaging. Radar telling me there's bogeys in the air. I call tally ho on the radio. What am I referencing? All right, in your defense, tally ho might be Navy aerial combat, but
yeah, I don't recognize that.
all right, so tally ho is target in sight, which references fox hunting back in the day. But I think that's more Navy, so I'll give that one to you.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
I didn't see that
We
in Top
never
Gun,
said
so I
that.
call
We never said
BS.
No, tally ho is an actual naval term. It's when your target is in sight, essentially, or when you're engaging the target, rather.
Okay.
But it's old school. That's based off of actually more RAF. It was stolen by World War II pilots after American pilots after World War II. So it goes back.
Captain Bob
All right.
is old school.
Yeah, that sounds kind of English.
Yes, it is actually. It is English. All right, so that was the twister. All right, if I say Wilco, what does Wilco stand for?
That's I will comply.
Will comply, 100%. Ding, ding, ding. Wilco is short for will comply. All right, and then the last one. Now, I don't know how far this predates, and I learned this in the Marine Corps when I started crew chiefing, listening to other pilots. Now, if a pilot says, I'm putting on my bag or I'm wearing a bag, what are they referencing?
I know this.
I would say a parachute.
No.
No, Serena knows it.
Serena, you cannot yell from the background there.
No, he's
It's
phoning
not
a
your
friend.
podcast.
Serena knows the answer. She can jump in.
You have your own podcast.
What is it, Serena?
Flight suit.
The flight suit. Yes. The flight suit
Oh,
is known as the bag when they put it on. So Serena saved you, Captain. So you're good to go.
For the
that
friends.
was not a term. That was not a term back then. It's not called-
And I did say I don't know how far this goes back. I overheard it when I served.
Bob, did you guys even have flight suits? Was there a dedicated flight suit?
Pardon me?
Did you guys have dedicated flight suit? Because nowadays it's all about G suits and making sure that the can handles the pressures and all kind of stuff. But back in Vietnam, did you actually have dedicated flight suits?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that being said, last question, and this is not a trivia question. This is more curiosity.
Now, right?
This is more curiosity for me. What's the most G's you ever pulled?
About 6.
Ooh,
Wow.
man, that's awesome. I make my kids.
Start seeing the tunnel vision coming in.
I was gonna say you're right at G-lock right there. You're getting towards G-lock. So that's awesome.
I assume that was in the F4.
Yes.
Okay, because that had to be
not the old one, that's for sure.
Yeah, because I would say that has to be in the jet, right?
Yeah.
I remember going to elementary school in Israel, and we lived next to an Air Force base, and it was an F4 Phantom wing there. And every time they would take off and they would break the sound barrier, and you heard that boom, and all the windows in the school would shake. So
Sure.
as kids, we love that.
That is so awesome.
Yep.
Most G's I ever pulled was having a hard time on the toilet. Yeah, I can't even compare. So
I used to be on the when we'd be practicing out on the range, diving in and shoot the ordnance and then pulling out. Man, they'd suck that thing up. Oh my God. It was, and of course,
That is very awesome.
that is so awesome. So I'm gonna need you, Captain Awesome, to sign my Maverick poster because I'm convinced you're the real Maverick. I got a nice movie poster hanging up in my I Love Me room, so I'm gonna need you to sign it because I'm convinced you're the real Maverick now.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Wooster, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a pleasure. I hope some of our listeners, honestly, I know a lot of them are our age in our world, so being law enforcement, first responders, and military, take some of what you said to heart and follow your advice, because I think as a generation, we have a lot to learn from you guys. And I personally appreciate the time and the insight. So thank you so much.
Yes, amen to that. It's because of men like you why I wanted to serve and continue that tradition, and so that our children didn't have to serve, although I'm sure many did. But thank you so much there, Captain Awesome. Captain America.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Have a great weekend. Thank you so much, Bob. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We hope you enjoyed this latest episode of the Silver Savage podcast. Please go ahead and give our podcast a like, share the link with a friend, and help us spread the word. You can follow us on social media as well. Instagram handle is silver_savage45. You can also find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and our YouTube channel where you can watch all these episodes' videos as well. More unique content, merchandising, and events are coming soon too, so make sure to follow.